What I've taken away from this spring training is this should be a good Chicago Cubs baseball team.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olbert. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and comment down below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Happy Friday, everybody. Stay tuned for the last segment. We're going to introduce Joe George to the show and talk about what he's going to be doing this year. 9 and 9 minutes is coming up in the second segment, much requested after last week. This week, we're going to do pitchers, but we're going to start with some news and then talk about my big spring training takeaway. And the news is that according to Bob Nightingale of USA Today, and I'm quoting here, the Chicago Cubs, looking for starting rotation depth, have now entered negotiations with veteran Lance Lynn on a one-year MLB contract. Matt and I did a subject on this, show on this, talking about this, 2-3 days ago. And I'll say the same thing. I mean, it's fine in a vacuum. I don't, it's not official yet. This isn't a run live, do a show sort of acquisition if it happens. To me, it's just a little bit more curious because you have Brown, you have Assad, you have Wicks, you hope to have Cade Horton. If Birdsell's healthy, you have him. And, plus the four guys that you already have. What are the Cubs trying to tell us here? Do they not like their starting rotation depth? You have Colin Ray too. I didn't mention him. Do they not like the starting rotation depth that they have? Is there an injury that we haven't been told yet? That's kind of what I'm a little bit concerned about. If the Cubs just want to bring on Lance Lynn to add to the depth for some security and maybe do what we talked about a couple months ago on this solo show, which was a 6-man rotation, whatever it is, fine. Maybe Tyler Zombro and the pitching guys think they could do something with Lance Lynn, fine. It's just a bit curious considering what they did in the offseason with Boyd and Colin Ray and things like that, and now they need another depth piece. I'm a bit confused by it, but I'm going to let it play out because what I really want to talk about in this first segment is that I've come out of spring training, and I knew this going in, but it's been confirmed in this spring training that I think this Cubs team, I want to officially say it is a good baseball team. But what am I saying when I say that? I'm not going to give my official wins prediction yet. That's for Monday night. But last year, I had this team as an 87-win team. And I'll say this, it's not far off from that this year. But last year, I think what I did is I made the mistake of thinking, okay, they're going to repeat what they did last year, and then Counsell will give them an extra jump. And as much as I've said, well, Counsell didn't do that, you also could just say they weren't the same team that they were in 2023. Bellinger was a different guy. The catching position was totally different. The offense was totally different. And yes, the pitching in some ways was better, especially with Imanaga and Tyone, but they were so aided by the wind, especially Tyone at Wrigley, that the same thing that helped Tyone hurt the rest of the offense. So maybe Counsell did give them a couple wins because they actually were a worse team last year, according to all the underlying statistics. And when you look at this team and you look at Cody Bellinger going away and what you have to do when you compare year to year is just not what you think Cody Bellinger is going to be this year, but what he was last year. Kyle Tucker is a better player than that. This PCA is going to be better than last year's PCA. I guarantee that. Matt Shaw is going to be better than what they got at third base. This catching tandem is going to be better than what they had last year. Yes, we're going to talk about in the second segment, and we've talked about, I do have some concerns about Tyone and maybe slightly about Imanaga, but I think the improvement of the offense, year two of Counsell, a revamped bullpen, this should be a better baseball team than last year, and it should be a good team. However, you also have to acknowledge that it is a team with flaws. It's a team with holes. And you know, you spend 215 million. You're 1 week away from opening day and you're talking to a guy like Lance Lynn. That tells me that you have holes. And this isn't a great baseball team. It's a good one. Could it win 90, 91, 92 if everything goes right? Sure. In my head, I have the floor right about 83. I have the ceiling right about 93, and I think they'll fall somewhere in the middle. But the key point to acknowledge is that Milwaukee won 93 baseball games last year. And as good as I think this team is, and I think it's a good team. I think anytime you win in the late 80s, especially in the high 80s, especially in this National League where you have teams like Philadelphia, New York, Atlanta, LA, San Diego, Arizona. It's such a loaded league. It's the first time in my lifetime where, like, consecutive years, it's just plainly obvious the National League is a better league than the American League in terms of teams and talent. A high 80s win is a good team, but Arizona was a good team last year and they didn't make the playoffs. And we are going into this year with a good team, but we're also relying on regression from Milwaukee. Because I'll be honest with you, I always am. If you were to tell me right now that the Milwaukee Brewers are going to win 93 baseball games again next year, we're probably going to be setting the postseason out, because I don't think this is a 94 win team. And I don't think it's a team that is going to make the wild card, because that could very well have 3 90-win teams in it. And so I guess the point of the segment is I'm excited. I don't think this is a bad team. I think this is a good team, but it's also just a little bit frustrating, a little bit disconcerting that we're going into the year going, yeah, I think we're going to be good, but we're going to need some help. We're not going to be a 97, 98 win team and just cruise to the division. Maybe that happens, but on paper, it doesn't look great. I mean, Fangraphs has the Cubs around 84, 85. Pacoda has 91. You take the averages, high 80s type of team. So we'll see what happens. But I do think this is going to be a better team. I think it would be a huge failure if this team was an 83-win team again or less. And to be honest, it'd be a huge failure if they don't make the playoffs this year, because this is kind of what they're built for. They gave up Cam Smith, right? Last year, they gave up Jackson Ferris. So the rebuild stuff's over. They've given up some top prospects. And the Hope kid as well is doing really well. So they've given up a lot of top prospects. They have a star player for 1 year. Pete Crow-Armstrong is poised for a big season. I think Matt Shaw is going to be a real quality rookie. Are they going to have enough pitching? We're going to find out. But, and Bleacher Nation had an article that came out Thursday about this as well. Like, this team has to win the division. And if it doesn't, there's going to be major changes across the board, not just Jed, but who knows the direction of the franchise and where they're going. But, the best example I could give of why I really do believe this will be a good team is that in the spring, I know the games don't matter, but, Kyle Tucker didn't do much, Seiya didn't do much, and yet the offense was still humming because Michael Busch was hot, PCA was hot, Ian Happ was hot, Matt Shaw hit pretty well. And I just think it's going to be that type of offense all year. The big question is going to be, do they have enough starting pitching? And can the bullpen close games and make sure the Cubs finish games that they're supposed to win? And we're going to talk about that in 9 minutes coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Huge March Madness news on Thursday morning. Didn't even realize that Duke was playing on Thursday morning, but the star of the tournament, projected star of the tournament, projected number 1 overall pick, Cooper Flagg, rolled his ankle and is presumed presumably day to day. We'll see how that affects the tournament. So what did I do? I went right to FanDuel to see the odds, and they did change slightly. Instead of Duke being plus 330 and the favorites to win the national championship, now they have the same odds as Auburn at plus 350 to win the national championship. So we'll have to see how Cooper Flagg heals up. It would be a huge loss for the college basketball game and the country if that young man can't play in the tournament. So I'm wishing him the best. Visit FanDuel.com right now and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. It's the best time of year. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and it's time to go 9-9. Last week we did 9-9 with the position players. This week we're going to do pitchers. I'm going to do it. I'm going to group them a little bit. I'm going to do some individual starters, then a little bit of a group of starters. And then I want to go on a little bit of a rant in the middle of this 9-9 about the bullpen, because I want to get out in front of this before it happens, because I know it's going to happen and it upsets me. So let's start with 9-9. And we're going to get started with the Cubs ace, Justin Steele. What I need out of Justin Steele, what I want out of Justin Steele in 2025 is to be Justin Steele. We have now seen really 2.5 full years of this guy just being one of the 10 best arms in the sport. And I don't think it's, we need to see any more. Maybe more innings, like 170 innings would be great. I've heard him talk about that being one of his goals, or maybe I shouldn't say him, but I think Boog or somebody on Marquee said he really wants to pitch, more innings this year. Give me 170 innings at like a 3.09 ERA. That's perfect. That's perfect. Do I think he could be a notch better? Do I think he could be a top, 3, 4, 5 Cy Young guy? Absolutely. But at the bare minimum, just be Justin Steele, because that's plenty and good enough for this team, and they need that this year. Shota Imanaga. A lot of people have commented lately, Sam, why are you assuming Shota Imanaga is going to regress in 2025? And the answer is because good organizations always anticipate. And even Craig has said, sometimes you have to assume worst case scenario, because that's how you lead. That's how you manage. You always have to have plans. And I just wish the Cubs had a little bit more plans in case Shota Imanaga has a 3.77 this year instead of an ERA in the 2s. I don't think that that's bad for me. Do I want to see him regress? No, of course not. Do I think he will? Yeah, probably a little bit. But if his ERA sits in the mid-3s with Justin Steele having the year I'm hoping he's going to have, that should be plenty good enough. Give me 175 innings of work, strike out 180 guys, and a 3.48, something like that. That should be good enough for this Cubs team. I would love for him to be the guy that he was last year. Absolutely. But, I'm also realistic and know that, people adjust. He had some good conditions. He gives up a lot of fly balls. He has some rocky starts. So I'm just hoping that he's in that mid-3 range. And speaking of that, Jameson Taillon, another guy I have a little bit of regression concern about just because of his drastic splits last year. Home ERA, low 2s, road, totally different guy. I've said this. This will probably be like the 10th time I've said this, but I really think it's an accurate statement. Jameson Taillon was not as bad as his numbers showed in 2023, and I don't believe he was as good as he was in 2024. What's in the middle of that? Somewhere in like the 3.6s, 3.7s. Obviously, the goal for all these guys is to be healthy and throw a lot of innings. When Jamo's healthy too, he can really, eat innings. So I'd love to see him at the 175, 180 inning mark. And if his ERA starts with a 3, especially if it's in the 3.0 to 3.7 range, that'd be wonderful. Next, Matthew Boyd. Talked about him a lot on this show. Didn't have a great spring. 130 innings out of Matthew Boyd would be plenty considering his injury history. And, I feel like a broken record, but I'll say it again. If the ERA for him, even if it's in the high 3s, that'd be wonderful, because he's replacing theoretically Kyle Hendricks from last year. And, Kyle Hendricks really struggled last year. If the Cubs have their main 4 guys, and obviously health is a huge assumption, Steele, Imanaga, Tyone, and Boyd, and all four of those guys have an ERA that start with a 3, they're going to be a pretty good team. I'm asking a lot, and if Boyd's in the low 4s, that's fine too. But those 4 guys being good, being healthy, being solid, being consistent is going to be really, really key for this Cubs rotation because, there is a drop-off after that. I want to group Brown, Assad, Wicks, and Ray all together. And I'll just say this about those guys. One of you needs to take that job. One of you needs to take the 5th starter job. It's not going to happen in April. Might not happen in May. Hey, it might not even happen in June. And I'll throw Cade Horton in there too, because if we're going to go into June, by the time we hit July and we're in a pennant race, because we will be, or a division race technically, somebody needs to say, that's my job. I'm the 5th starter on that team, and I'm going to show you why. And I don't know who it's going to be. I think Jordan Wicks has gotten a little bit underrated and lost in the fold. I personally love Ben Brown out of the bullpen, but think he could be a starter. Cade Horton might have the best stuff in the organization. So whoever it is, one of those guys has to take that job. In 2023, if you remember, it was Javier Assad. He took it. Somebody has to take it. It can't be alternated. Maybe it's Lance Lynn. I don't know. Okay. Before I get to Porter Hodge and Ryan Pressly, I got about 3.5 minutes left on my timer here. And I just want to say this about the bullpen in general. I talk about stats that bother me, wins above replacement. Sometimes it doesn't talk, with the offense and stuff, just hidden stats. One stat that has become a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why as I'm doing this, my hat's like falling off. One stat that's become a pet peeve of mine is bullpen ERA during a certain stretch. Like last year, it was like, hey, since the All-Star break, the Cubs have like a 2.05 bullpen ERA. That's great, except when the bullpen comes in and you're up 8-0 or down 8-0 and you throw like 4 scoreless innings in the games in hand. The thing that matters to me with a bullpen is closing out games that you should win. The stat I want to know is how many games did you lose when you were winning in the 7th inning or later? Because I know last year it was far too many. This game of baseball is so random. It is so challenging. The one thing you have to do is close games that you're supposed to win. They say 60 wins. You have 60 wins, you have 60 losses. What do you do with the other 40? Well, the other 40 don't matter. If the 60 wins, you're going to lose 20 of them like the Cubs did last year. So the main goal for this bullpen, I don't even care that much about numbers. When it's 4-2 heading into the 7th, close the deal. I understand, of course, that that's not possible every time. Every team's going to have a few games where you go, ooh, that loss stung. Ooh, we had it late and we couldn't close it out. I get it. But most of the time, 95+% of the time, when you're leading going into the 8th, going into the 9th, close the deal. Those are the numbers that matter. If Porter Hodge comes into the game in the 9th and we're down 4-2 and he's just getting work in and he gives up 4 runs and that messes with his ERA, I don't care. Your job is to come in when we're leading and get the final 3 outs of the game so we could hoist the W flag. Win the games you're supposed to win. That's the bullpen's job. And also keep you in games that are really, really close. Okay? But really, it's the first part. I'll just go Hodge and Pressly real quick because I'm running out of time. I got about a minute. This should be Porter Hodge's job. Joe's going to come on here in the ninth. Joe's going to come on here in the 3rd segment and talk about Ryan Pressly not being as good when he's not closing. Don't care. With all due respect to Joe, this is Porter Hodge's job. He's got the best stuff on the team. This is a bullpen that lacks some stuff. It's a staff that lacks some stuff. Porter Hodge needs to take this job and run with it. And then it's Ryan Pressly's job to be steady, consistent, veteran presence, and do his job in the 8th inning. I'll say what I said going into last year. I said last year, if Alzolay and Neris are good, the rest of the bullpen will be fine. They weren't, and they weren't. This year, we need Hodge to be good. We need Pressly to be steady and solid, and then the Braziers, the Merriweathers, the Pearsons, the Thielbars, whatever it is, those guys will fall in line. But you need your high leverage guys to get off to a good start in April and May to set the tone, get the confidence going. Coming up next, we are going to talk to Joe. He's going to tell us some really cool stuff. We're going to introduce our postcast segment, and that's coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Folks, if you're anything like me and you're not a big cook, you live alone, you spend way too much money on delivery services and takeout, Monarch Money is for you. It'll help you budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off, half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and I am joined by Joe George, the programming director over at ESPN Houston, and your new Locked On Cubs postcast host. And I'm going to explain that before he gets a chance to introduce himself. So this year, across the Locked On networks, we are going to be initiating a postcast on our YouTube channel and on our audio. So for those everydayers of ours that know that on weeknight games, Matt and I, we typically 15 to 20 minutes after the game, we'll either go live or about an hour after the game, we'll post just a regular episode that wasn't live. So we have a little bit of a gap between the final out and when we come on. And what Joe's going to do is he's going to be on immediately after the final out, giving his takes and his post game with his postcast that'll feed right into our show. It's going to be super helpful too for like day games, because Matt and I obviously don't record till the night of on day games and weekends and things like that. And it won't change anything with Matt and myself. We'll still be on 5 days a week. So we really are just going to be giving you as much content as possible. So Joe, we're happy to have you. How you feeling, and what else do you want to tell us about the postcast?
Yeah, I want to start here. Obviously, as you introed me, you start with the Houston stuff. I'm a Cubs fan. I'm going to start there. I'm from Illinois. I'm a Cubs fan, diehard. My dad and I had season tickets. We went to a World Series game in 2016. I'm a diehard Cubs fan. That's my team. I moved to Houston 10 years ago. So yes, I consistently cover and talk about the Astros as well, but the Cubs are my team. So I'm super pumped to be doing this on your guys' channel and being part of it. And yeah, we'll go 15 to 20 minutes. Soon as the bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth is over, we'll go live here on the channel and it'll be short. Like I said, 15 to 20 minutes, and then you guys will be on right after. And we'll do things like player of the game and just hopefully Ryan Presley's not blowing too many saves and things like that. But it'll be a good time for sure.
And also I should mention too, you've done the postcast with the Bulls and the Bears as well. So you are, you're right. I should have said that first. You are a Chicago guy. I just wanted to let the people know
for sure.
Credibility wise, you have a job in this business for your day job as well. So, which is pretty cool, and we'll add something to our channel. So we're excited about it. I think it'll be a really cool thing to, like I said, it's like from the final out until Matt and I are finished, we're going to have complete content all the way through every day. We'll be doing shorts and stuff after games as well. So it'll be really good. But let's transition a little bit and let the audience know, how are you feeling about our Cubbies this year? And, is this going to be a good club?
I feel pretty good. This is look, man, you said it. I do Bears and Bulls post-game shows. It's been tough. My first one I ever did was the Hail Mary game from Jaden Daniels. So great start to this job for me. The Bulls have been terrible. A 3-game win streak feels like a breath of fresh air. So I need the Cubs to be good. We'll start there just as a fan, but also for this. But yeah, I think they're going to be good this year. I think they're going to win the division. I don't think they're done yet. I know Lance Lynn is now joining the team, it seems.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But it feels like, they'll be a team that will make a big move at the deadline. for a pitcher if they're in position, and that'll kind of fit in with the cheap mentality of ownership in a way as well, not to lock someone down. So I think they should be pretty good this year, man. And I mean, Kyle Tucker, he's been my favorite player to watch over the last 5-6 years living here in Houston full time, and just watching him every day. Like Cubs fans are gonna love him. King Tuck he's legit, man. He is gonna be a 5-tool player for this team, and I cannot wait to see him in a Cubs uniform. When they did the Cubs convention, which I truly miss going to, it used to be the best.
We were there.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's a great time. It's been a while since I've gone, but it's seeing him in the Cubby blue for the first time was awesome. So I'm excited to watch Kyle Tucker every day for the Cubs.
Tell me a little bit, and this is really out of my curiosity, but I think our listeners will appreciate it as well, because we have a great listener base, a great loyal group of listeners who I firmly believe when they see something on our channel is gonna go to it. Tell me what it's like when you're doing a postcast and you got to lock in right at the final out or the time goes. Because like for us, to take people behind the scenes, which we don't really typically do, but like, first of all, a lot of these games are decided in the ninth inning, so you don't exactly know what's going to happen. But, you take a breath, especially for me, because I'm extremely reactionary, extremely passionate. If I go on right away, I'm still going to be hot. What's it like kind of, you got to watch pretty much all the games, which we do too, but, and then you're okay, it's 6th, 7th inning now. All right, I got to start thinking about, all right, this is going to go. It's kind of an interesting, situation.
Yeah, so it's kind of like taking like notes throughout the game and kind of trying to figure out what the story is going to be, in moments, and kind of just like highlighting things. So, if Tucker has a 2 RBI double and it puts the Cubs up 4-2, it's like that kind of looks like the headline of the show. And then obviously, a walk-off ruins everything in a good way, hopefully, most of the time. But so it's like, it is interesting. Like it's very different of, it's like you have to like be like, you haven't, like in my mind, I know where the show is going to go, even though it's kind of short, but it just always feels like it gets flipped on upside its head. Like that's what the Bulls games have been like this year. I mean, they've had 5 or 6 comebacks of 17 plus points. So it's like all my notes are just like how terrible this basketball team is. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they won the basketball game. So it's like everything just changes immediately. So it's a lot of just like kind of hoping that some nights are easier than others where the storylines just kind of stick. There's not blown saves in the 9th and stuff like that.
What's also interesting for you is doing the Bulls postcast and now the Cubs. You're joining 2 franchises that have a murky TV situation. So for a lot of people, you could be, and we're like this as well. Like, hey, I've had so many people say to me, throughout the years of, hey, Sam, I don't really like watching the Cubs. I don't have marquee. I just go to you after the game. And so now we're going to kind of have that opportunity times 2. So, that's got to be interesting, especially with the Bulls. I don't even have CHSN. I don't even have it.
Yeah. Bulls has been tough, man, just because of how the season's gone. So it's not like the interest has picked back up. And even as like, they're going to be the 10 seed. I mean, hell, like they're in reach of the 8 seed right now. If they really,
wild,
which is they wanted to be, like, instead of just tanking it out, but 76ers are terrible. So it's not helping them at all. So yeah, it's been interesting for the Bulls because like you can just feel it. Like you can feel like the lack of interest from the team. And I kind of went through it with the Bears. Like the last like big show was Thanksgiving. Like that was huge for me. And then after they fired Eberflus and after the first Thomas Brown game, you could feel like it kind of go away. So even though I know Marquis is a struggle, like at least I know, and that's why this one I'm most excited about of all the teams, because I just know going to Wrigley my whole life, like what the fan base is like.
Yeah, there's
like,
no
it
lack
doesn't
of
matter.
interest here. There's no lack of interest here, right?
It doesn't matter if they're on TV or not. Like people still care,
of course,
so much. So it's gonna be for like me personally. That's gonna be like a breath of fresh air. Just having like people that care about the team again is gonna be nice.
So last question for you, going into the year. What would you say your record prediction is going to be for our Cubbies? Because we're going to do that. We're going to release that Monday night final records. Last year I was off. I said 87. They got to 83.
I think they're going to be – I've got them at like 90, 91, 92, wow, I think.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
I'm betting on what I've watched the last 3 years in Houston, and last year being the anomaly with Ryan Presley a little bit. Like
That's a big statement. That's a big statement.
it's to me is like Presley last year when they signed Josh Hader, like he's not an eighth inning guy. Like we knew it. Like watching the team.
So you think he's going to be the closer Hodge is going to set up?
I don't, which makes me more nervous. Like I think it's going to be by more committee, but like Presley struggles. It feels like at times in the eighth inning, coming in with guys on base, like he's best in a clean situation. He always has been. If Cubs fans don't know, his nickname is Ryan Stressley, because he'll put two guys on with no outs and he'll get out of it. But like so, like it's
that's that's like Neris. Of last year.
Yes. And hopefully he's way better than Neris, because like Neris, I thought that was a mistake when the Cubs made the move last year. Like, so yeah, he can be Ryan Stressley a little bit. Is his nickname?
Good. Joe,
I know.
I know. Get the listeners on your side before you do that.
Kyle Tucker is going to be top 5 MVP.
All right. Awesome.
Top 5 MVP, Kyle Tucker. As long as he doesn't foul the ball off his shin again, he'll be fine this year. Also, the Cubs have a good medical staff, better than the Astros, so that'll be fine. But
okay.
As long as Presley is not what he was last year, I think that the Cubs can win 90 games this year.
I love it. I'll just close by saying Matt and I will talk plans next week. We're going to have you on later in the week after the games for a full show to really introduce this. This is just a little bit of a just to get people there. I don't think. And we'll talk, but I think for the Japan series, it won't be that. It'll be
it'll be just you guys. Yeah,
it'll be just us, and then this postcast will get started in Arizona against the Diamondbacks for the opener that Thursday night. So super excited to have Joe on. He's going to be on again, like I said, with Matt and I for a full show next week after the Cubs are hopefully 2-0, maybe at least 1-1. And thanks for coming on, Joe. We're excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm excited to be part of it. You guys got a huge channel, and this is a great fan base to be talking to every day. So really excited to be a part of this for sure.
Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 30 minutes, and we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this is Locked On Cubs.